Recorded live at Talks and Tasting Studios, it's the Clerical Errors Podcast, the podcast that shows you what's behind the collar. Let's go.
From the Talks and Tasting Studio, this is the Clerical Errors Podcast, a show that shows you
what's behind the collar.
I'm Bullhagen.
I'm Hambleton.
And this is Vicar.
And Peter's here.
Hey, Pete.
So yes, we have another cleric in studio. How you doing, Hambleton?
Well, I made it up here. I only had to dodge one deer on the way up, so that was pretty good.
All right. It's you were on what? Probably about a year and a half ago.
The time really flies. Yeah.
It was the time where we had a Winkle here, and I needed to get an episode out, so I just grabbed two pastors, and they felt obligated to come and record.
When the circuit visitor says, "Hey, do you want to do this?" Typically the answer is yes.
Because everyone's so scared of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're an intimidating figure.
I wish. How you doing?
Well, since I already answered the question, I'm still doing pretty well. How are you, Bullhagen?
Well, I make mistakes once in a while.
Better than that, how's the vicar doing?
Yeah. I'm doing quite well. I've got a sermon ready for Sunday, and I only had to rewrite this one complete time, so it's version 2.0, which is an improvement over the 2 Sundays ago where I had to write it 2.5 times. So I'm getting a little better.
That's really impressive.
What was your vicarage like? Tell us, take us back. Or would you rather not talk about that in public?
I think that pleading the fifth is probably the best choice possible. I know I had to rewrite many a sermon.
Right.
All right. Well,
we should get into this. Hambleton showed up with a cooler.
Oh. Yes.
Yes. I brought for me a gift that was given to me by a member, and this is from Modest Brewing Company in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a New England IPA that they call Dream Yard.
Nice.
And Vicar has one, and sadly, as the listener probably knows, Bullhagen can't have wheat, and so he's drinking something else.
It's called Dream World, isn't it?
It is Dream World. There you go.
So crack it open.
Right on. That's the best kind of IPA, the one that tastes like an alcoholic grapefruit juice.
That's absolutely right. It's wonderful.
It's great.
So, Vicar, does it taste like being a pastor?
Yeah, I thought
It's kind of got a dream effect to it.
right. It's like a dream
That's
come
right.
true.
Because Berg would always say, "How are you doing?" And ever since he was ordained, what did he say?
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Ah, okay. Drinking the Dream Yard.
You guys do that. I am once again sipping on my Jefferson's Ocean Ages at Sea.
Oh.
That sounds
working my way
pretty
through
nice.
Do you know what that stuff does? Is they actually age it on a ship.
Oh, that's the one that they ship around the world?
Yes.
Nice.
Yep.
It's interesting.
And I've got my Topo Chico lime. Look what I brought.
Oh, he remembered to bring a bottle opener. I don't have to recreate the...
Is that the new Glarus bottle opener?
Yes, it is. Good call, my friend.
That's been in our family for generations.
So, we have an email from a Mitch. I want to get to this right away. Peter, do you have that email available?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot, man. Yeah, I can pull it up. Give me a sec.
Excuse me for asking you to do your job that we pay you handsomely for.
Oh, you pay me handsomely, huh? Mm-hmm. All the money goes to the equipment that's sitting in your studio.
Oh.
We have an email here from Mitch. It asks, Vicar, can you read that?
Yeah, I think I can. Let's see. As a faithful early Sunday morning listener, I was a bit confused on the recent update from release 18.0 to 19.0. Typically, with such an update, parenthetical upgrade, there are documented notes provided describing the features offered in the update. Looking forward to further release descriptions. I do enjoy hearing from you each week. A faithful listener, Mitch.
Okay. So, so apparently he's a faithful listener. Do you have any comments on this, Hambleton?
I think I do have a lot of comments. Very similar to the vicarage question. I'm going to plead the fifth a little bit. I know this listener probably better than most of the other listeners.
Okay.
He is in fact my father.
He might be one of our biggest listeners.
He could be.
I think I think you showed me a picture. He has a shirt.
He has the infamous Berg shirt. It was a gift for Christmas.
And I thought maybe you could take a picture of the studio for him, but I don't want to necessarily ruin the mystique.
Yeah. There's always that great saying that you should never meet your heroes.
Well, it'd be hard to fit the entire studio in just one picture, you know?
That's true.
Right.
The spacious studio, I mean, you'd need a whole day, really.
Right.
And this is about as clean as it gets, too.
It's very impressive.
Oh, yeah. That's nothing but the best here.
We've got the fine china right above my head.
Look at that.
This is true.
So let's get to the question. So what kind of features? I guess we never really asked the kind of features.
Well, it's going to be tricky because, I do know 18.0, but I'm not sure what features that he had. I heard that he was a deer hunter.
Right.
And I guess I would say I lack that feature, so I've been downgraded. Or the listeners have been downgraded, I suppose. No longer having a deer hunter feature.
But a lot of similar qualities, though. If we have a question on pavement.
Well, yeah, as long as you're comfortable knowing about pavement over deer hunting, then it was a good upgrade. Yeah, I like sewer systems a lot. Pretty knowledgeable about those.
Well, so this the studio is familiar surroundings then.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Peter, can you help me out? What would be, from what you've noticed already, some maybe upgrades? Well, I would say with a lot of apps, newer isn't always better. Right?
We're just in the beta phase, I think. I think we're in beta 19.0. Right? Eventually he'll upgrade. We'll see. I'll tell you what. We'll give him 2 weeks. So on October 2nd, we'll see how much he's progressed.
Correct.
And we'll give him a rating maybe the week after that.
Right.
Just say, we'll check in after that October 2nd.
Yeah, we have a lot of plans for the October 2nd.
Oh, really?
Episode. Yeah.
I can hardly wait. I might listen.
Anyways,
I'd like to mention that beta means feature complete, by the way. So if I'm in beta mode, I'm not getting any better. I'm just getting the bugs worked out. No more features added after beta.
Oh, okay.
You said it, not me.
Okay.
And as always, I'm in alpha mode.
Yeah.
I was going to say beta means something else in my world, but okay.
Whoa.
Yeah.
All right, roll the theology booster.
All right. So, what are you preaching on, Vicar?
It's the story of the lepers, the 10 of them, Jesus encounters.
I don't like them called stories.
Oh, it's the pericope of the 10 lepers.
All right.
And Jesus encounters them.
And pericope, anybody know what that means?
Yeah, I was going to say, hey, Vicar, what's
Yeah.
pericope?
That's the Greek word for cutting out. So it's the story clipped from the entire chapter. And
I don't know. To me, story sounds like a fish story.
I don't think.
What do you think, Hambleton?
It's a distinction that we have in English that isn't really there in German, the mother tongue of the Missouri Synod. In German, you have Geschichte, which is both story and historical account.
How
So
about
what's the better English word then? Surely there must be some kind of English
Account.
word, right?
Account.
The
yeah.
historical account of the cleansing of the 10
historical account.
lepers.
Yes,
Because
cleansing.
account carries with it, you know, of what actually happened, a witness.
Right.
That's a good point. It's the accounting.
Whereas
Right.
a story is something that
A lot of higher critics
make
would
up.
say, yes, let's hear about this story.
Right. Okay, it is the account of the 10 lepers that Jesus cleansed.
There you go. See? The app is still updating.
upgraded already.
I only had to rewrite what I said a few times.
I'm noticing a trend. All right.
Should I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Gospel comes from Luke chapter 17.
Say it like you mean it.
The Gospel comes from Luke chapter 17. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was passing along between Samaria and Galilee, and as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well.
All right. Are you on the 1 year?
Yes, I do use the church's historic lectionary.
Oh. Okay. Well, I've used both.
I have too. For about 3 months, I used the 3-year lectionary.
Okay. Till Advent.
Advent, that's right.
Oh,
Did anybody notice?
Not where I was previously.
Okay. So what do you guys have? I'm not preaching. I'm taking. Do you have your sermon somewhat thought through?
I do, actually. Yeah. What's really interesting here is, well, it's difficult on one hand because this is one of those readings that gets repeated in the church here. We also use this reading on the high feast of Thanksgiving.
Yes.
If you do Thanksgiving for Thanksgiving and not harvest observance is another.
A lot of times we do the harvest.
I've done that too, but this is an option to do on Thanksgiving for obvious reasons, that the Samaritan returns and gives thanks to God.
Right.
So the challenge is trying to keep it different enough that you can still preach and have different sermons and not just recycle.
Right. And I was actually telling Vicar because one thing that annoys me, hopefully this isn't your sermon, is the preaching of this text of like you all have to feel more gratitude.
yeah. Is that how you wrote yours?
No, I do make the distinction, though, that we would assume that the 9 who didn't return were also thankful. But they were thankful for being cleansed. But the Samaritan turned around and showed thanks to the giver of the gift, which is one of the distinctions there. It shows faith, recognizing the gift came from Jesus. So that's
because
one thing.
that's part of thankfulness is more of a recognition of.
Right, exactly. It's like on Thanksgiving, when you sit down with your family and everybody's sitting down and you're all saying, I'm thankful for the Vikings beating the Packers this last weekend. I'm thankful for this, that, or the other thing. But the point of this is that we recognize that the giver of all good gifts is God the Father, and he gives these good gifts to us through Jesus Christ. I'm going to be really embarrassed if Vicar started writing this and you made him rewrite it.
No, you're safe. You can be marked safe from copying Vicar.
But so one of the other things that I do with this text is I recognize that the Samaritan actually does what Jesus told him to do, but in a much fuller way than what the other 9 did. So the 9 went, and we assume that they did exactly what Jesus commanded them to do. Go show yourselves to the priest, as is commanded in Leviticus 14. Go through that whole cleansing process, which involves waiting 8 days, shaving all the hair off of your body, making certain sacrifices, having the priest mark you with blood on your earlobe and your big toe and everywhere else on your body. But the Samaritan shows himself not to the priests in the temple. Rather, he shows himself to our great high priest, Jesus Christ, who is the one who declares us to be clean, to be pure.
The temple not made by hands.
Exactly.
And in that way, I think being a Samaritan actually played to his favor.
Yeah, exactly. He couldn't go to the temple. He's a Samaritan. That's not where he belongs.
Yeah.
Kind of like the reading for last Sunday as well, with the Good Samaritan who couldn't, or he was the only one who could stop within the law, or because he's not under the law.
Right. So what kind of so with that, how do you what kind of things do you plan to bring up in your sermon? I'm not sure what stage are you done writing it?
Well, I thought I was before we started the podcast.
Okay. All right. So with that, what is the incorrect thinking within the pews that you seek to address?
That would be a good question. I think addressing, recognizing, being thankful, not just for a gift, but thankful to the giver of all good gifts, who is Jesus. Recognizing that Jesus is the one who is our great high priest, that the Christian faith, the Christian response to receiving these good gifts is to return to the giver of the good gifts, just like the Samaritan did. He went to the priest to continue receiving these gifts.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wasn't meaning to put you on the spot.
Right?
Sure.
I mean, that is the kind of question I asked the vicar, though. You can tell. It's been a struggle. Not that you write it, but the first few sermons with me is a real wrestle. Isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is, and as it should be. It comes out kind of. My first ones are always kind of stilted and kind of just say the whole pericope in my own words type of thing, like I'm still in 4-year college or something, and then you get a hold of it and tear it up for me and point me in the right direction, give me a few ideas on writing technique and all that. And it actually works. It really does work.
You know, one of the most soul-crushing questions I've asked the vicar.
Is this actually necessary?
Well.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Right. Well, every vicar I've said, how important is your introduction?
Yes. Yeah.
I've even done that to you already.
Oh, yeah. It was important to get my writing going.
There you go.
It is not important to keep. And sometimes I don't see that right away until you point it out. And then it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. I don't need that paragraph at all or all that background information.
So one of the more soul crushing, and this happens at some point, usually with every vicar too, is they'll really get into this law section and they really like it. It's really well worded or whatever. And I ask them, have you yourself actually wrestled with this? No, not really. So,
right.
Kind of interesting. So I like what you're going back to what you're saying. As you know, as your circuit visit, I do bounce around a little bit.
Yes.
And that is what a blessing that he actually knew where to go.
Yes.
How many people, when they think of what they have or the gifts that God has given them, do they not know who to thank, where to go, where it comes from?
Right.
And that's a big thing that people don't always realize what a blessing it is that you can go on Sunday morning and encounter the giver of all good things.
Right.
That's not themselves. That's that gives them their earthly life and their eternal life. That going to the text, that recognizes that you are unclean and is not afraid of you, who hears your cry for mercy. One thing that Vicar, can I tell him one other thing?
Certainly.
That really helps, because you remember being a vicar, and it still happens to all of us, where you kind of stuck and like, where do I really want to go, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I did the person in the chair.
Right. Do you know that one?
Demonstrate that for me.
All right. So I think of, and it could be real or it could be fake. It could be an imagined, like, so let's say I imagine someone in a particular situation, and I'll say, okay, what does that individual need to hear from the text? Mm-hmm. And the reason, one thing it does is it kind of fine tunes it, because, and that's what really happened with his is if you have someone who's speaking with you, you're going to cut all the stuff that doesn't really apply, and you're going to say, all right, I really got a short amount of time. What does this person really need to hear from this text? And another thing it does is it gets to the heart of the matter of what people need to hear from it. And even if you are kind of specific, which he was in his writing of his sermon, it could apply to people with whatever they're going through. And so they can kind of latch on to certain things. So he had a specific scenario that he was thinking about of who might really hear it, and he was able to preach at something in a way that person might hear. But whatever situation people are going to, whether it's a feeling of an understanding of their own cleanness or guilt or shame, that's something that everyone can kind of fill in the blanks for themselves. And so having a person in the chair, and I think of all sorts of different scenarios that help me. Like an example, when I preached at the pastors' conference, I thought of a pastor that I would talk to who was very discouraged about his work. Well, what would that pastor who goes through the loss of what a pastor goes through, what would that pastor really need to hear from the text? And which was easy, because I'm dealing with a whole host of pastors at that pastors' conference who, I guarantee you, identified. I mean, it was very specific. But to me, that is really helps, especially with a vicar when they're used to writing papers. Mm-hmm. And they have to prove this point and prove this point and be novel with an idea, which is what you have to do at the seminary, write a paper, right? You write a paper to prove your point or to prove something about the text.
Well, even the homiletics classes, the sermons that you write for seminary, they're for hypothetical congregations, hypothetical people, that you can make up whatever scenario you want, and Dr. Aho is going to say, oh, yeah, that'll fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As opposed to the real life people with actual faces and names.
And this is something we were kind of joking that not always newer apps are always better, because vicar, you're more seasoned in life than the average vicar. Can we say that?
I'm probably on the high end. I like high end better than seasoned.
Okay.
Well aged.
Well aged.
Low miles though. But one thing that you have in your arsenal is you have a lot of contacts with people, and you have a lot of persons in the chair in your mind that you can already address.
Right.
Especially coming from a non-Lutheran background.
Right.
Where you have all sorts of work relationships, family relationships, people you've talked to on a whole host of just life experience that you can just plop in that chair and have at it in a sermon.
It really changed the sermon a lot from the first version I wrote, which was, let's say, about the text, right? So that's like an arm's length separation. I write a sermon that is about the pericope, about the text, and it wasn't to anybody in particular, and so therefore it came off, I think, as distant and didactic and a little dry. I mean, it was all there. It probably would have done okay in a homiletics course, and it would have been all right. Maybe get a decent grade on it, but it wasn't personal, and it didn't go to anybody in particular. And then when you told me the technique of the person in the chair, and I thought of somebody and thought, this person that I'm thinking of who's not a Christian, who probably feels like they're very, very far away from their Christian upbringing that has been gone out of their life for a long time. What if this was like the last sermon that she was ever going to hear? And so once I thought of it in terms of what if for some reason I had the opportunity to give a sermon on this text about the 10 lepers to that person, what would I say? And that kept pulling me back to a much tighter message and so therefore I didn't even address parts of the text. Lighter touch some places, more on the other, because I was getting to a specific message to a specific person, and it really changed the way that sermon came out. I mean, it was really a complete rewrite by the time I used that technique and tried again.
Now some would say, well, theology, you're maybe if you're taking all those other stuff, you're taking some of the theology out. But I would say no, because theology isn't theory. Theology is going to the sinner.
Right. If theology is kept in the abstracts, then it's absolutely useless.
Right. Right.
Just a bunch of nerds sitting in a closet reading a bunch of books.
It could be a classroom, but okay, classroom.
Oh, well. You say potato, I say potato.
I did tell you from the very beginning, like even with that first sermon, right, that this sermon is probably better than what you'll hear in half the pulpits.
All right, I'm in the
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because vicars come out well trained, they know the theology, they're elbow deep in talking about it and thinking about it. That's not what I'm going for.
Yeah.
Right. God's people who sit in the pews to whom you have been called deserve better than. That's probably better than half.
Right.
It's probably above average.
Right. I'm not aiming for good enough because my first drafts were probably good enough, but that's not what I want to preach.
Which is why, like, we've even talked about, like, my sermons. I handwrite them, and vicars seeing how I file them.
Some of them are filed in here right now.
Right. That's true. Yeah, I'm like, hey, vicar, do you want this? Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to go in a pile. And I do that for a specific reason, because it forces me to be fresh each time.
Right.
Especially in the 1 year.
Yeah.
You definitely need that. Otherwise, it's all too tempting to go into the computer files and type up 2018 Trinity 14 and click print.
Right. Right. Well, I think we talked that text.
Yeah, or at least we've talked.
We talked homiletics
about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question. See, how long did you graduate? 8 years ago? 9 years ago?
8 years ago.
Ooh.
Yeah. You classmate of one of my former vicars. I don't remember which one. It would have been, 10 years ago, you would have been a vicar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Your vicar would have been Nathan Schieber.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
He was my classmate.
In North Dakota now.
He is in North Dakota, right where I came from.
Oh.
Not the same congregation, but when you're in North Dakota, 2 hours is pretty close.
Right. Right. So, okay. Yeah. But it's interesting. I don't know. I think it's really hard to teach this in depth in the seminary.
Absolutely.
In the homiletics.
And I think one of the reasons that it's difficult to teach this in depth at the seminary is because you don't have the practical application that you do on vicarage. You don't have the intimate relationship with the actual people in the pews.
Right.
Yeah.
And if I might say this, neither do the professors.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, I got to say, I appreciate all those excellent sermons that I hear in the chapel.
Yes.
But then, but that's really directed at a guy like me, a guy who's in the seminary.
Mm-hmm.
And so those sermons probably wouldn't be very applicable sometimes to.
And
to a
you can
congregation.
preach in a way to seminarians that you shouldn't really preach.
Absolutely. They're preaching to their congregation,
Right.
Yeah.
but that's not going to be your congregation.
Right.
Unless you get a call to the library or IT or something like
Yeah.
that. But it's hard though. Like I could see if I were at the seminary and I was teaching homiletics, I would say within about 5 months I would lose my edge. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think I know what you mean. I mean, they got to teach us a framework so that we have a place to get started for men that have not maybe ever written a sermon yet. I mean, I had not ever written a sermon. I remember attending a Lutheran church, and I'd been just going to Lutheran churches for a few years. And I told the pastor, I like that sermon that you just gave. He said, "Oh, really?" And he shoved the manuscript into my hands. This was maybe not even hardly 5 years ago. I did not know that sermons were written. That's how far afield I came from. I had no idea. And it was like a magic moment, I actually attribute that moment to part of how I got interested in the seminary. Is this pastor just on a whim shoved the manuscript into my hand, and suddenly, boom, mind blown, sermons are written.
Hey Vicar, can you? I hate to do this, but you keep on banging the studio table.
Do I? Oh, yeah, that's probably making
come
all
on.
kinds
I
of
mean,
problems for recording. Sorry.
That's all right. I mean, it is an audio format, and people are poor Mitch out in his early morning walk, probably just, what is that weird thumping noise?
You're going to scare him off the trail.
It's a feature.
Hey,
of the
on the
19.0.
bright side, I just found out I'm getting paid to deal with it, so that's cool.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. You got paid by lots of meals.
Oh, here it comes.
And
It's like a mom trick right there.
So anyway, that was the last episode of the Clerical Errors podcast.
Here comes the slide whistle.
Vicar, how good are you at editing?
I'm going to find out. I can edit sermons a lot.
Audio engineering can't be all that different,
Yeah, it
right?
must be kind of the same.
you mentioned something earlier too, that I did a calculation once here that, especially for a while, I was averaging 12 funerals ish a year. So that really does mean that 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 sermons that is preached is someone's last sermon that they're going to hear.
Goodness.
So you go to the discussion. Oh, well, okay is fine, is it? Like, there, when I know it's kind of meant as a device to get you going in the sermon, but there's something really heartfelt about the preaching aspect of the fact that you have a congregation of people in the chair, in the pews,
Right.
and that changes how you write a sermon. So yeah, I mean that's it's really important to remember, and it could be higher than that because we're on the radio, and probably lots of people from a 50-mile radius listen to it. So, but that's people don't always realize that, but it's the way it is. So,
Yeah.
So don't bang the table anymore.
Okay.
This could be the last time. This could be the last time someone's listening to this podcast.
Right.
They could be out on an early morning walk. I'm not.
And they just get
Boy, that got
turned right
dark.
off.
I'm not killing your father.
Do you want me to cut that out?
Well, I know that Mitch, if he's listening to the show, has a good sense of humor. He has to.
It's true. I don't know if it's good, but he has a sense of humor.
So we have a top 12 list. Who wants to do it? Go ahead, Vicar.
Oh, yeah, I don't, I don't know. There's some bombastic thing you say. You
Yes.
gotta remind me.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're waiting.
I think I remember.
Okay.
Pete, play the intro.
That's close.
Almost.
Almost.
Missing a letter. That's okay.
Right.
Play the introduction.
It is funny, though. We've done that so many times. When there's one little thing off, it just sounds weird.
It does sound weird.
Peter, play the intro.
Enough nonsense. It's time for Bullhagen's Top 12.
And this is a big moment. This is your first top 12 list.
It is. And the top 12 list that I have actually prepared is the top 12 qualities of a Lutheran pastor.
Okay, qualities or qualifications? How would you?
Qualities, characteristics of a Lutheran pastor.
So this isn't necessarily a dogmatic, like Timothy. Or
There's a little bit from Timothy. There's a little bit, Paul's letter to Timothy. There's a little bit from everybody's favorite American Lutheran theologian, Gerberding, and also Fritz and a couple of others, and just something I've thrown in there too.
Okay, Fritz, he's got some interesting ideas.
He sure does.
Peter, Vicar, who is Fritz?
You looked at me and you saw my facial expression was like a big question mark, and so then you had to ask me who he's. I'm going to guess he's a German American that was, maybe from the 1900s or something like that.
What's his first name?
I can't remember.
Okay.
Probably Otto.
Sorry, Pete. Peter's shaking his head. All right, so 12 qualities.
12 qualities of a Lutheran pastor.
Number 12.
A Lutheran pastor should have, you'll like this, Bullhagen, a sound body.
Oh.
Oh.
That is, the pastoral office can be demanding physically. You could go from a deathbed call on a Saturday night going into a Sunday morning and then have to go straight to the service, or you might have to go through a long Wednesday evening catechesis into a service, into something else. So it's not for the faint of heart. You have to be able to have a strong voice to be able to preach through a lot of different services. So it's not for the weak.
It is actually a physical job.
It is. And if you are morbidly obese, then that's going to hinder your performance in the pastoral office.
And probably in every other way.
Right.
Yes.
Because when the pastor sits around the church.
He sits around the church. All right, so number 11.
Well, I want to talk about that just a little bit more. All right? Because, well, it is a physical job, right? But also, I mean, you don't want people to say, well, with this pandemic thing, like health was I think an issue because you don't want people worried, well, the pastor might get...
Yeah, pastor might get sick and die in the next month.
Right.
Or
Now
he can't
that
come
doesn't
visit
mean
me 'cause he
that
might
we're
die.
we're not saying though, like if you have genuine health issues that's should keep you, right? But I think on the other hand, do what you can to be healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there was a time back in the synod's history when they would look at a man and say, he's not physically fit for the office. He can serve the kingdom of God some other way. So they would look at some physical attributes and say, not this one.
And well, Vicar's learning that too. He's
Oh yeah,
on
yeah.
the Bullhagen lifting program.
Yeah, Bullhagen's making me go to the gym and lift
You're
weights.
clanging and banging.
Yep. I thought you were criticizing me of hitting the table again for a second. No, I am appropriately clanging and banging over at the gym. Yeah, and
Clinking and tinking. He's working his way up.
tingling and mingling or something. But
Oh, goodness.
By the way, you know how it's hard for me to give up the pulpit for Vicar, you know? That's why one reason why I work him hard.
Right.
Like the top 12 list, I have this annoying habit of when they read the number of echoing it. And I've always done that, and I don't know why. Vicar or Peter knows that, so.
Okay.
Okay. I won't be offended when you
Duly
echo.
noted.
It's fine because I
Number
cut all
11.
of them out anyway.
It's just more work for Peter.
Yeah.
Number 11.
Number 11.
Number 11.
A Lutheran pastor is a Christian gentleman. This sometimes gets overlooked. The pastor ought to dress appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
He ought to dress professionally. He shouldn't dress in super fancy clothing. But at the same time, he probably shouldn't be wearing worn out jeans and muscle shirts all around. He should keep himself clean. He should be well-mannered, mind his P's and Q's.
That makes sense.
What if you're at the gym?
Totally different.
Okay, just wanted to check, make sure.
No, you should wear your clerical at the gym, Vicar.
Darn it.
Yeah, and actually, probably, I don't wear sleeves at the gym, so.
I figured you had a clerical shirt with the sleeves cut off. That's what I've always pictured.
We should get him one.
You know, this is true. I've had, over the years, I've got it in a gift from a vicar, the Welcome to the Gun Show t-shirt. And, like, all 3 times, like, you see this t-shirt, I'm sure this is the first time you've ever seen or gotten one of these.
Take a note, Vicar.
All right.
Got it.
Number 10.
A Lutheran pastor should have his house in order. That is, he shouldn't have rebellious children. He should be the husband of one wife. He should not be financially foolish, taking out loans for this, that, and the other thing, making sure that he can have all the latest and greatest gadgets. Rather, he should be logical and keep his house in order. This one's taken more from St. Paul, inspired by the Holy Spirit.
All right.
Hopefully you don't mean clutter-free, though, because
Yeah, I'm convicted. What about his car? Can his car be messy?
I said house.
Okay.
Paul never said
What about
anything
his-
about his car.
All right. What about his studio?
Number 9.
A Lutheran pastor should be trustworthy.
Yep.
If a pastor is habitually a liar in little things, well, what else is he going to lie about? Another note that I took down was that a pastor should be slow to make promises, lest he accidentally break the promise. He should be quick to apologize when that promise is broken. For example, you're leaving a shut-in member and you say, I know that we had a good visit. I'll see you a month from today.
They'll keep track.
They will keep track. And if you're not there a month from that day, their heart is going to be broken.
Noted.
That is true. And I would say, too, along that note, you know, I kind of joke about my attention issues, right? But I don't use that as an excuse. But I don't I don't hide the fact that I have those things. You know what I mean?
Right. You manage them. You know how to work despite them or use them to your advantage even.
Right. And I you know, I don't have to project myself as being the perfect pastor in any way. You know, that's who I am.
Yeah. I just use technology a lot. I mean, everything goes on a calendar. If it can go on a calendar, it does go on a calendar. And as soon as I misstep on that thing is completely forgotten. So I have to be real diligent about that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've thought about getting the light phone, which is the latest and greatest thing, but I appreciate the technology of the Google Calendar a little too much and having it sync up to everything.
Oh, yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
I have a secretary who has a Google Calendar and a wife who has one. It's great.
I mean, technically, you have a vicar that has one, too.
That's true.
Even better. Because vicars don't talk back.
Trouble.
He smiles knowingly.
Number 8.
A Lutheran pastor is active. Not just physically. He's a self-motivated man. He's able to apply himself independently. He doesn't need somebody to follow up on him and say, Pastor, are you doing all of your visits? Pastor, are you getting your sermons written by now?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Proactive.
Proactive. That's a good word, Vicar.
Yeah.
And like we said earlier, if you have weaknesses in that area, to work, because I know a lot of pastors, and this was probably one of their bigger struggles. Pastors, for example, aren't immune to social anxieties.
Yep.
Where they have the heart to it, but making phone calls sometimes are really hard, or going to certain visits are kind of hard, and they have to work really around that.
Right.
Yeah, have to push through. I could see that's going to be an issue. I don't know about an issue, but it'll be something I will work on to make sure that I self-start. It's handy having a really good supervisor that makes sure that we are doing the things we ought to do, but I won't always have a supervisor.
Right.
Yeah, and that, I guess I should have prefaced this whole top 12 list with all but one of these, maybe two, one of them, you can train yourself up in. If you aren't very proactive or self-motivated, well, you can train that up in yourself. You can discipline yourself.
Right, because a lot of these are probably stuff you've also learned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't come naturally to man, but it is something to be trained up.
That's a good clarification.
Number 7.
A Lutheran pastor is respectable. He's dignified. He's not given to a scandalous life, not openly in unrepentant sin. And then another one, this one came from Gerberding. He's not too funny, which I was personally convicted there. But at the same time, he's not too serious.
Yeah, I probably fall on one side of that
There might
more
be
than
one
the
side.
other.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a funeral or the deathbed isn't the
yeah.
place to be
Sure.
telling a joke.
Oh, yeah, that's totally true. That's like a nightmare material right there, like something you hope you
Absolutely.
wake up from if you accidentally misstep like that. But you kind of sounded like Dr. Grimm there for a second, by the way, when you say, now, don't be too serious, okay? But don't be too funny. You know what I mean? He always gives the extreme
Absolutely.
sides. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't do this too much.
Yeah.
Don't do this too much. Do both of them at the same time, but they're mutually exclusive.
So basically,
Right, like that.
like the worst thing that you could tell a group of seminary students, okay, everyone just be normal.
yeah. Uh-oh.
A group of people who are totally
Right.
Not normal.
Yeah.
Number 6.
A Lutheran pastor has a sound mind. That is...
What does your mind sound like?
Sometimes it's a monkey clashing cymbals. All right, so a sound mind. I think this is really related to what Paul says to Titus and Timothy, that he's apt to teach. He's able to understand lofty thoughts, but then explain them to the regular, everyday person who doesn't spend every waking hour reading theology.
All right, that sounds like kind of something like I was when we were talking about the sermon writing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a
Right.
great example.
Like if you can't read people at all.
That would be tough.
I once heard that Greek, as an example, or your language studies in preparation for your sermon, that should be like your underwear.
Right.
We all hope that you've done it, but we don't want to see it.
We hope you've done your underwear.
Thank you, Vicar.
I just wanted to be really literal.
Number 5.
The pastor should have a living, deep, and fervent piety. The pastor is an example to everybody in his congregation. And if the pastor's not pious, what are we going to expect to happen of his congregation?
Right.
Not that he's a pietist, but
Right.
piety is a good thing.
The way that I kind of think of it too is, especially when we're dealing with meetings or conflicts or something, it has to be the biggest adult in the room.
Yes.
That's where the best construction language is helpful for me when I start to feel sideways with somebody, at a meeting. It seems like that's when that happens. And I think, well, what can I say this person is doing with the best construction? What are they intending as the outcome? And maybe that's an example of being the oldest grown-up in the room, or the biggest grown-up, or however you just put it.
Right. I mean, like the last one to throw accusations, the first one to be forgiving.
Yeah. First one to say, like, well,
And-
maybe I don't understand.
But
maybe
at the
I'm
same
wrong.
time, when I say adult in the room, but also at the same time showing strength and character.
Sure. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that as well.
Number 4.
Lutheran pastor has a tender and sympathetic spirit. He should know the strength of his office, the authority that he bears as being in the office of the ministry, but then exercise it compassionately.
Number 3.
A Lutheran pastor must have moral courage.
Yeah.
This goes more along the lines of what you were saying, Bullhagen, that the Lutheran pastor shouldn't be spineless. He shouldn't be a coward. He needs to be able to stand up for what is according to the Word of God. He should have certainty that he is called into the office to stand in the stead of Christ to convict unrepentant sinners and to forgive those who are repentant. And all of his confidence should be based on the Word of God.
And the way I kind of view that too is the people under his care should know that he's willing to go through hardship for them.
Yes.
Like, I think I said this. We're in a Winkle. I think I said this in the Winkle, where when you talk about the idea that Scripture has different roles for men and women, right?
Right.
That when we talk about the biblical understanding of a pastor being a man, it's not just plumbing.
Right.
Right.
There's a masculine aspect to it.
Right. Yeah, there was a theologian who once said that there are 3 genders. There's male, female, and clergy. But this ought not be so.
No.
God ordains men.
Yeah.
You should be one.
Number 2.
A Lutheran pastor has common sense. This is the one that in my reading and experience, you can't necessarily train up. A theologian once said, God gives grace, man gives knowledge, but if you're lacking in common sense, you are going to be a fool forever. So you need to have tact. You need to be able to say the right thing, but not at the wrong time. You need to be able to
Right.
read the room.
Right.
It seems like you could say wisdom as part of like common sense and
Sure.
sort of-
Yeah, absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. And
Oh, wait, how do you feel
Oh.
about your number 1? You confident in it?
I'm pretty confident.
Did
in
you
it.
save the best?
Absolutely. My favorite might be number 2, but
Okay.
I kind of feel like we have to have number 1 as number 1.
Sure.
And number 1.
The Lutheran pastor has to have the faith. If he's not a Christian,
He shouldn't be a pastor.
amen.
I would
that's
agree with
solid.
that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, maybe I could, quibble on that a little. Oh wait, no, I can't. I'm being told no, I can't.
Well, we can cite the Donatist
There
controversy,
you go.
but
Right, maybe an evil cleric that was doing everything right. Nobody knew he
Right.
was evil.
Sure.
Not to say that the pastor doesn't also pray, I believe, help my unbelief.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. And we said it before, if any pastor is lacking in any of these things, this doesn't mean that you are absolutely disqualified from the pastoral office, but train yourself up in this. Figure out how to get better.
And if you're, because we do have some people listen to the podcast, considering being a pastor, if you are, start working on these things now.
Yeah.
But you don't have to imagine that you show up fully formed, ready to be a pastor, and then you go to seminary.
Right.
That's not the order of things.
Right.
Right. Where you refuse to allow the seminary to form you and shape you.
Right.
That's a bad idea.
That is bad.
That happens now and again, though.
Yeah.
All right. We do have a question from Hannah. Vicar, can you read that question?
I can. What's a good hymn to sing when walking in the woods to teach about and give praise for God's creation? 831. Look that one up real quick.
831.
I think that's right.
They're pulling out their hymnals now.
Sorry, or LSB, Lutheran Service Book. I'm thinking it's 831. I'm better with numbers than hymn titles, and so I'm not remembering.
How shall they hear who have not heard?
No, that's not 631. Then try.
631. 631.
Can't believe it. I'm gonna have to go grab mine and look. How does it go? It's got the Jamaican tune.
Hear, O Lord, I see thee face
No.
to face.
That's not it either. Okay, my memory.
The
is failing.
Jamaican?
Yeah, it's
Here,
got.
Vicar, have a
okay, let me
hymnal.
take a look and see if I can find it.
While you look for that, I do have one too. But while you're looking for that, I'll tell you some things that maybe are not. Like, it only takes a spark, maybe. Right?
In the garden.
In the garden. Right, where you don't have to go to church.
Right. Because Jesus walks with me anyway, without the word.
Right? Or Pharaoh.
Earth and all stars.
There you go.
So the one I thought was, now Berg's going to be upset if he's listening because I didn't pick anything from TLH.
Oh, no.
But I did pick Rejoice My Heart, Be Glad and Sing. And the reason why I chose this one, this is 737, because when you think about going for a walk outside, you're rejoicing in God's gifts. And what this hymn does is it places like what you're going through on a walk in a context of a God who cares for you, and it points you to Christ. So I will do a quick read of that, Hannah, so that you can listen to it and decide whether you think this would be a good hymn. Rejoice, my heart, be glad and sing, a cheerful trust maintain, for God, the source of everything, your portion shall remain. So you're out walking, right? God being your portion and everything, the source of everything. He is your treasure, he your joy, your life and light and Lord, your counselor when doubts annoy, your shield and great reward. Vicar, do you need the Methodist hymnal? Is that?
Yeah, I probably need the contemporary hymnal or something to find the one I'm thinking of.
Okay. Why spend the day in blank despair, in restless thought the night? On your Creator cast your care, he makes your burdens light. So it says, casting your cares on the Creator. And then he gets into the meat of it. Did not his love and truth and power guard restless thought? Did not his love and truth and power guard every childhood day? And did he not in threatening hour turn dreaded ills away? He only will with patience chide, his rod falls gently down, and all your sins he casts aside in ocean depths to drown. His wisdom never plans in vain, nor falters nor mistakes. All that his counsels may ordain a blessed ending makes. Upon your lips then lay your hand, and trust his guiding love. Then like a rock your peace shall stand here and in heaven above. So I suppose it's not directly about like creation and teaching you about all the things, but what it does, I think, is place that walk in the context of his grace and mercy and his care at all times. So that's the one I chose. Did you find it?
I did, and I said I was good at numbers, but this number had little to do with the ones that came to mind, so I guess whatever. But it's 930. All you works of God, bless the Lord. And each of the stanzas kind of reflect almost a different season or a different aspect of creation. For example, stanza 2, sing you sun and you moon above, stars of heaven, now sing his love, dew and showers with winds that blow, heat and fire, you ice and snow. And then the refrain is, raise your voices high, praise and magnify, all you works of God, bless the Lord. And the third stanza is about frost and winter. The fourth stanza is about hills and mountains. And the fifth one is about humanity singing. It's a great tune. It's a great hymn, and it really shows how all of the works of God bless the Lord in the innate way that he made them to glorify his own self.
All right. You have anything in mind?
Yeah, those are both solid choices. I would say for a nice, easy to remember hymn, I think it's 859. Now thank we all our God. It's a good old German Thanksgiving hymn.
Yeah, that's a good learning hymn.
Yeah, it's
small children.
For small children. The other hymn that I have, it's not really a giving thanks hymn. Maybe when you're done walking in the woods and Hannah has children, right?
Yes.
That when she's putting the kids to bed, this is one of the hymns that I sing with my children, is Gerhard's nighttime hymn, Now Rest Beneath Night's Shadow. It highlights how God takes care of the woodlands, the fields, and the meadows, and he also takes care of us. So having gone through and giving thanks to God for all of these things, now we're asking him to...
The hymn I read was also a Gerhard hymn, by the way.
Well, God bless Gerhard.
I think mine's a Starkey, by the way. Another common name that comes up in our hymnals.
Sure. Yes. I think he has
common.
more hymns than Gerhard in the hymnal.
In the hymnal, yes.
Long drink. All right. Well, what do you think? How was your time in the studio today?
It was wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It was good for me, too, as the vicar, because then I had two people that, knew better than I did about everything.
Well, and you got to feel a little bit better for having
Right.
To second guess all of your sermon writing.
Right. Yeah.
You're not the only one, Vicar.
Right on.
All right. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of our show. I'm Bullhagen.
I'm Hambleton.
This is Vicar.
And may your
stories be accounts.
Thank you for joining us. This podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Questions, thoughts, concerns? You can contact us on Facebook at facebook.com/Clerical Errors Podcast, on Twitter at Clerical Errors P for podcast, or email us at feedback@clericalerrors.org. Thanks for listening to Clerical Errors. See you next time.